First of all, I would like to congratulate Zafra and everybody here by the success of the Malta conferences. Malta conferences was a dream from 10 years ago, but now it is a reality. It is very strong, more gathering, more friendships between the delegates of these conferences. Also, I'd like to thank Zafra to choose me to be the chair of this session to introduce my friend and colleague, Professor Yuan Lee. Professor Lee, you know, he was born in November 19th in the year 1936 in Taiwan. In 1955, with his excellent academic performance in high school, Lee was admitted to the National Taiwan University. By the end of his freshman year, he had decided chemistry was to be his chosen field. 1959, after graduation, he moved to the National Tsinghua University. He received his master's degree on the studies of the natural radioisotopes. In 1962, he entered the University of California, Berkeley as a graduate student. He worked under the late Professor Bruce Mahan for his thesis on chemi-ionization processes of electronically excited alkali atoms. 1965, upon receiving his PhD degree, he started to work on ion molecule reactive scattering experiments using ion beam techniques measuring energy and angular distribution. In October 1968, he accepted the position as assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry, James Franck Institute of the University of Chicago. In October 1971, he was promoted to associate professor and then professor at 1973. 1974, he returned to Berkeley as professor of chemistry, University of California. He became as American citizen in the same year. 1986, after receiving Nobel Prize, Lee continued his research in chemical dynamics. His research group has made major contributions in the elucidation of various photochemical processes as well as the determination of the structure of various protonated molecular clusters by obtaining infrared spectra. In January 1994, after 32 years on research and teaching in US, he returned back home, Taiwan, to serve as president of Academia Silesia. Lee is scheduled to retire at the year 2006. Thereafter, he planned to work at the Institute of Atomic and Molecular Sciences and Genomics Research Center, both at Academia Silesia. So far, he received 32 honorary doctorate degrees from the university around the world, beside a lot of hours. A lot of things stated in the Google, but I make it shorten for the time. It takes 1 hour to present Professor Lee, but this is just short information about him. He was going to give us a lecture about return nature back sunshine. Professor Lee.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First, I'd like to thank Professor Fahmy for the introduction and for Zafra for organizing this Malta conference. I want to tell you a story that might intrigue you. Many years ago, when I was attending a meeting in Malaysia, during the lunch discussion, we are talking about astronomy, sub-millimeter wave observation of the star far, far away. One scientist looked at me and said, "Yuan, you're an Arab." I said, "Why did you say that? He said, because you are very kind and very smart. Also, yes, that's a good definition. I accept I'm an Arab, if that's the definition of kindness and smartness. And knowing it, 1 year later, I got an invitation to attend the conference of expatriate of Arabic nations, and meeting was held in Qatar. So I went there. I was the only expatriate of Arabian country, and I told him, according to my DNA typing, it was true. Many, many years ago, my ancestor did live in the Middle East before migrate to the western part of China, to the east, then to down south. So I am a card-carrying Middle East scientist. So I'm not just one Asian scientist attending the meeting. I do feel very much at home here and like part of you. Today I want to talk about a subject which I believe I did talk about it about 10 years ago in Malta, and about sustainability. As you know, we made some progress, but things are not getting any better. Well, the title is Return to Nature, Back to Sunshine. After Big Bang, it took more than 9 billion years before the solar system was formed. And the evolution of the solar system depends entirely on the burning of the sun. If we wait for another 5 billion years, the diameter of the sun will expand, and then it will be as large as the Earth orbiting around the sun. At that time, Earth will not be there, but it will be 5 billion years. Because of the special position on the Earth, 1 billion years after the creation of the solar system, life started, and through photosynthesis, material recycle on the surface of the Earth. And that is the only planet which is accepting the sunshine and recycle the materials on the surface of the Earth. And the way the Earth look like today, you will be impressed at the origin of all life on Earth, including human civilization, all powered by sunshine. And this is really a very important thing. Does the Earth look like today? A couple of million years ago, our ancestors appeared, so-called humankind appeared on the surface of the Earth, and then evolved, developed. But for quite a long time, we are part of the nature. So even if you look at the life record of 300 years ago, this is a wedding ceremony of Aboriginal tribe in Taiwan. In this picture, you do see almost everything biomass, biomaterials from the housing, clothing, what they eat. So man was part of nature. But things happened around the same time. There was great divergence. We started to live away from sunshine, away from nature, and of course, more than 300 years ago, you did see the Industrial Revolution, invention of steam engine, weaving machine, internal combustion machine, and so on and so forth. So in this picture, you will see that almost everything you see, like locomotive, rail, building, are things made out of something unearthed from underneath the ground and use fossil fuel to transform. So that is one of the great divergences. We started to depart from sunshine, we start to depend on the fossil fuel. And of course, things develop very quickly. Almost everywhere around the world, the burning of fossil fuel started to become very important. In the United States, shale energy in 1950, only 10% of fossil fuel, 90% coming from burning of the wood. Then, about 80 years later, 1930, all the energy came from fossil fuel and not much from the burning wood anymore. So we started to use the energy stored underground and start to depart from the sunshine. And of course, because of abundant energy with the development of science and technology, we start to produce many things by mass production, including automobile and many gadgets and development of vaccine and other medicine, improvement of the living environment, which make the life better. But at the same time, we did see we are moving away from unlimited Earth to limited Earth. And of course, the first thing is exploding production and consumption. So you see that we make lots of things, and chemists contribute a large fraction of it after the war: nylon, polymers, plastic, and you name it. We don't use many biomass are replaced by product made out of plastic, and even the high-tech material shown here, iPad. Everybody is having iPhone, iPad, and go home, you have TV, automobile, air conditioning, washing machine, and individualized consumption make life better and more comfortable. At the same time, we produce enormous amount of waste. And the waste we are producing no longer can be recycled by the sunshine. And that's one of the problems we are facing today. And along with mass production and consumption, human population went up very quickly. During the last century, our population went up from 1.5 billion to 6 billion people just in one century. By about 1950, scientists they say that Earth can support about 2.5 billion comfortably. As the population goes up, non-renewable resource started to be depleted. Forests become rainforest. Forest becomes smaller and smaller. Unsustainable growth rate, starvation will take place, and worldwide environmental damage. Now, today, we have 7.2 billion people, and United Nations is projecting we will have 9.6 billion people by 2050. So we did see that the population consumption both went up, and those are very typical thing in Southeast Asia, in the big city along the coast in the summertime. You will see people go to the beach and taking baths among the people, not in the ocean. And of course, because of the consumption population and up, human footprint started to become quite serious. So let's look at the human footprint. Actually, it was during the last 50 years, human imprint started to increase enormously. Even look at the carbon dioxide, ozone depletion, temperature rise, all those things happened during the last 50 years. And so, right now, the world, according to the State of the Nation report reported by National Geographic, right now the world consumes 1.5 times the Earth can provide. What does it mean? It means on the surface of the Earth, we receive sunshine, things we can recycle. And all entire biomass is 2 orders of magnitude more than what sunshine can create in a year. But what we are doing is we started to consume the Earth. We're really going down. So we are overdeveloped. When we're young, I say we, I'm a little older maybe, but we are not very young. But when we were young, we inherited the earth, it is not that bad. But now we are handing the earth to the younger generation. I just have to say, I have to apologize. I'm sorry. We are really not giving you ideal earth. And many years ago, I did mention that if we continue to do that, then 50 years from now, younger generation will sit there and then charge the older generation, say, you guys, you had a chance to take care of the earth, but you didn't, so we are suffering. And I just found out that the last year, it happened, somebody in Alaska is suing the government. Young person, high school student, is suing the government that you didn't take care of the atmosphere. So, if I were to convince you that we are consuming 1 point times the earth, then the earth is overdeveloped. And it doesn't make sense to have some so-called developed country to tell developing country how to move. It doesn't make sense anymore. So development no longer said we have an environment, society, and economy, 3 pillars sustaining it. Now it becomes a finite system. Environment is outside. Economy and society have to develop within the boundary of the environment. Of course, many of you, just like myself, used to live in the United States. A world of American would consume 5.4 times the earth. And so, if you look at the American dream or the Hollywood dream spread all over the place, that is not sustainable. And we do have to really seriously think about it, since we have only one earth. We don't have so many earths. We have only one earth. So, in this earth, what are the major crises we are facing? I remember during the 50s, 60s, during the Cold War, nuclear holocaust is the number one danger, can wipe humanity away from the earth. But now, I would say that the rising temperature, changing climate, extreme weather is one of the things which will really surely going to affect the younger generation very seriously. So, if you look at the global energy flow, energy came from sunshine. It is 5,000 degrees K, and energy irradiates mostly in the visible region of the spectra. Some of them are reflected by cloud, absorbed by the earth, or reflected from the earth. If there's no greenhouse gases, the earth's temperature might be around minus 15 degrees centigrade. Because of the greenhouse gas, we are maintaining about 20 degrees. But as the greenhouse gas concentration increases, many of the infrared radiation, because surface of the earth is cool, mostly emit infrared region, will be absorbed by greenhouse gases and then re-emit to the earth. So the surface temperature of the earth will rise. And that is really very well known. Long time ago, Arrhenius, a very famous scientist working on the chemical kinetics, did warn that if we keep on burning the fossil fuel, temperature will rise. And those are the annual land surface average temperature. It is continue to go up. And every one of us remember in the 2007 when IPCC said we have to control the temperature to within 2 degrees centigrade, and if we allow the carbon dioxide concentration to go up to 450 ppm, there will be 50% of chance temperature will rise by 2 degrees centigrade. And that IPCC report, scientists didn't deal with it adequately. Even now, many distinguished scientists say, Yuan, why you worry about 2 degrees? I live in Stockholm. Now I moved to Singapore. Temperature difference is more than 2 degrees. I still cope with it. And why 2 degrees? Somebody in Mongolia said in a season, the temperature will move from minus 50 to plus 40, change 90 degrees, and you're so stingy and talking about 2 degrees. And in the morning, temperature might be minus 5 degrees. In the afternoon, will be 30 degrees in Mongolia. So this 2 degrees centigrade somehow didn't convince people the seriousness. Of course, if you look at the human body, our temperature is 36.5 degrees. If you said Earth is like a human body, if temperature were to rise by 2 degrees, 38.5 degrees, you'll be lying in the bed. Many medical doctors said, you better take care of yourself. Rise by 4 degrees centigrade, 40.5, you will be risking your life. Doctor will immerse in the cold water, put some ice in there, try to cool you down. But that is something we didn't communicate very well. But actually, if you look at this so-called burning ember, it is quite interesting. That's the temperature before Industrial Revolution. That's the temperature now. Went up by 0.6 degrees. And at the present time, if you look at the extreme weather event, it is yellowish color. If you raise the temperature, it become orange and become red. And when it becomes red, it's quite serious. The reason at that time, scientists said, well, might keep the temperature within 2 degrees is because if you look at the risk of large-scale discontinuity, even when the temperature go up to 2 degrees centigrade, there's no chance that the entire Earth system will go to discontinuity. We only know the extreme weather will become worse and worse and worse, and actually it's happening. But by 2009, Smith and co-workers published a paper in the PNAS and said, actually, situation is a lot worse than what we are expecting. If we allow the temperature to go up to 2 degrees from Industrial Revolution, the color is already yellowish orange. It means there's a finite chance climate will go to discontinuity. It means when temperature goes up, oceans start coughing from Siberia, frozen land, lots of methane will emit, and suddenly temperature is out of control. So this is really quite serious. And at the present time, if you look at the extreme weather events, as you've seen recently, last year, what happened in the United States, Hurricane Sandy came by, and then afterward there was a hurricane. Storm Sandy was so big, but the United States is well equipped to withstood the damage, although more than $100 billion lost. And then you look at the flood in year after year from 1950, no matter whether in Europe or America or Asia or India, flood is keep on going up. And this is the data up to 2000, but if at 2010, it went way up now. Only place at the time was Australia. So many of my friends said, yeah, you should come to live here. Nuclear warfare, nuclear weapon will be thrown between those places, but not to Australia. But you know what happened? A couple months after what he said, Australia made up with. The size of France and Germany combined is all flooded for quite a while. And Australian officials said this is a disaster of biblical proportions. And if you look at, they say the typhoon in 2009, Shaolin village, typhoon came. And in 2 days, dropped 2 meters of rain. And overnight, our entire village was swept out and 700 people killed overnight. And that's happening quite frequently. Last month, I went to Japan. A typhoon was following me. I landed in Tokyo, and then the next day, typhoon hit Izu, and landslide killed 50 people. Last week, not the last week, only many days ago, when I left Taiwan flying to Paris, a big typhoon Haiyan is hitting Philippines. Those are enormous typhoon. What happened? And we know that more than 10,000 people killed, and Philippines is not equipped to withstand such a big typhoon and lots of casualties. And along with temperature rises, one other thing which will wipe out humanity is disappearing biodiversity, fading ecosystems, and that is getting quite serious. We do not appreciate that tiny little bees and butterflies, they are producing food we eat, almost 30% of it. And 1/3 of the food we eat is pollinated by wild insects worth over $200 billion. And there are 30 million livelihood depend on the fish species and supported by coral reefs and small island in southern hemisphere especially depend on this. We are losing extinction of many mammals, amphibians, coral reefs, and things getting worse. So the question is, how can we maintain the global sustainability? So pathways to global sustainability. We are facing global problems. And last year, when I went to Rio Plus 20, nation state initially made some suggestions, but United Nations is a nation state based organization. If any country object to it, those suggestions will be removed. At the end, nothing really is that substantial. So one of the question and one of the things is global responses to global problems. So we see every day thousands of planes and people traverse the skies, and numerous goods cross the seas. The scourges of diseases and the environmental problem do not respect national borders. Actually, in the 1940s, one philosopher said, maybe sometime in the future, somebody could be so far away and can take the entire picture, like this picture, Earth. Then humanity will realize we are all together. Nature does not have artificial national boundary. We are all together. So one problem is, can global problems be effectively solved by nation-based systems and approaches? Probably no. But scientists are used to work together, globally, internationally. So we do have the responsibility to move step further, so we can work together and do not depend on the nation-state-based operation alone. So it's interesting. If you look at the typhoon Haiyan in Philippines, you know that in 50 years, the real enemy we will be facing is the enemy we are creating ourselves in our daily life. Global warming, climate change, those will come upon us. In the 50 years, we will be discussing our survival of humanity. And of course, we have to worry about the enemy come across the border. And every year, almost $2 trillion spent on defense. But many of the weapons will become obsolete. But the global climatic problem will become worse and worse. So the other thing is, we want to solve problem globally, but as we move into a low-carbon society, we know that we cannot keep on burning the fossil fuel. When we said we want to move into low-carbon society, what we are saying is, in fact, we want to go back to nature, go back to sunshine, return to nature, return to sunshine. That we diverged more than 300 years ago. We did not appreciate sunshine and keep on using the nature. Of course, we have to place stewardship of natural heritage at the center of all policy. Without protecting the environment, we will not survive. And last year, it was interesting. Somebody called Alan Savory received Buckminster Fuller Challenge Award in Great Britain. The award was given to him because he tried to advocate restore nature by copying the way nature works. When he was young, he was growing up in Africa and suggested to his government, we are losing the grassland because too many animals. He suggested 40,000 elephants should be killed and 40,000 elephants eliminated. Then he found out that the grassland is disappearing even faster. So he realized he did something wrong, terribly wrong. He would go to the cascade and carry his sin by making mistakes. Then he realized that we really need to imitate the nature in order to restore nature. What he claimed is controversial. He claimed that if we do certain things, then carbon dioxide will be all reduced. What he was claiming might be an overstatement, but restore nature by copying the way nature works certainly is a good point. And so we said we have to return to nature. As to back to sunshine, for so many years, because energy available through the fossil fuel is so abundant and so easy to get, we forgot the power of the sun. Sun, in 1 hour, transmit energy to the surface of the earth. That's about equivalent to what human society use for the entire year. Or sunshine really gives 10,000 times more energy than we consume, except we have not learned to use it very effectively yet. So, Stephen Chu, earlier this year, he stepped down as Energy Secretary, but before he stepped down, he gave a talk called Energy All-Star, and he believed that before maybe the end of this decade, I see wind and solar being cost competitive without subsidy with new fossil fuel. And new fossil fuel, he was talking about fracking, gas coming from fracking. And Bloomberg Energy Finance also mentioned that the best wind farms in the world already produce power as economically as coal, gas, and nuclear generators. The average wind farm will be fully competitive by 2016, a couple more years. Except wind is not available everywhere. Unless we globally connected, we learn to store the energy. This competitiveness might not go too far. For example, in the island of Southeast Asia, in summertime there's no wind. When wind comes, it's a typhoon, and typhoon will blow those apart. And you wait for the wind, and then come the typhoon. You wait for the rainfall, then it's going to be flooded immediately. And aside from scientifically, we'll go back to sunshine, we really have to live better for less. When I say live better for less, partly it's coming from science and technology. We're talking about efficiency, like using the automobile. How can we use energy more efficiently? And it's amazing that the icebox now sitting in Japan and some of the US plane only need 50 watt. 50 watt. Used to consume more than 500 watt. Now, icebox only use 50 watt. They are very smart. You open too long, you beep you. Then you have to close. And then you program your usage habit and optimize the energy supplies. So when we said live better for less, lots of this will come from efficiency, energy efficiency, But we also need to organize the society in a different way. Urbanization is taking place very quickly, and we are predicting more than 75% of the people will live in the big cities. But if we organize the city right, then you don't need a car, because you can and love to walk, bike, or take mass transit to meet all of your daily needs within 10-20 minutes journey. And so it's interesting when we talk about urbanization, what is the kind of city we want? And you don't need a big house. Many of my colleagues coming back from the United States always dream a big house, a big yacht, but we don't need it, and we really can use a small space and more efficient energy, and you really buy new things because what you own lasts forever. When they break, you fix them, and what you don't have, others share with you. When I was in the United States, I used to fix lots of things. So my son told his classmate and said, "My father is a fixer man, and he always carried a bag of lots of broken things, want me to repair. And I can repair large fraction of it, or sometimes I couldn't find the component. Then my son would go back to school very disappointed. My father cannot fix it for you." And anyway, we really need to. And also, we have to control population explosion. This is very important. It was 20 years ago when people look at the population problem. There are 58 Academy of Sciences in 1994. They show a report and said, if current prediction of population growth prove accurate and patterns of human activity on the planet remain unchanged, science and technology may not be able to prevent irreversible degradation of the natural environment and continue poverty for much of the world. Last year, Inter-Academic Panel made a statement. I think the former president of Inter-Academic Panel is here, sitting somewhere. Professor Harper. Did IAP made a statement, very important statement about population. Conclusions are the same. If we keep on going up to 9.6 billion, United Nations will predict by the time in 2050, when population go up to 9.6 billion, because the improvement of diet, we need 80% more food. But people investigating the ecology will say, because of the extreme weather, by 2080, food production will go down by a factor of 2. So we need almost by a factor 2, or go down by a factor 2 within 50, 70, 80 years. Well, we are leaving those kind of problems for the next generation, and I do not believe that the young generation will forgive us. But we also know that the security for parents, education for girls, employment for women will be sustainability for all. I think this is especially important in Africa and Southern Asia. Well, another one I want to mention is improve equality around the world. If everybody do not believe that they own this earth, they will not be very enthusiastic about trying to improve it. So the equality is certainly one of the issues we have to tackle for the global sustainability. Well, I made some suggestions. Part of the suggestion, we have to change our value system, way of our life. So sometime when a president of a country said, we want to maintain our way of life, that would be scary, especially a powerful country say want to maintain our way of life. that means the disaster. And part of it will come from the science, part of it is coming from the how the government work together. And at the present time, equality around the world is really quite a big issue. So we have to tackle all those problems. And during the last 5 years, after I was elected to become president-elect of International Council of Science, for about 5 years, I spent large fraction of my time for the things related to the International Council of Science. We had the mission. The International Council of Science was organized 80-some years ago. In 1930, after the First World War, scientists did realize we have to work together and organize the International Council of Scientific Union. At first, the members are all unions. Then 120 national members join in, and the name is changed from International Council for Scientific Union to International Council of Science. But the mission is the same, strengthening international science for the benefit of society. And as I said, we have 120 nation members, 31 international scientific unions that include IUPAC, IUPEP, and geological, astronomical unions all together. And we have a scientific associate and interdisciplinary bodies in key areas. The office is located in Paris, but we have a regional office in Pretoria, and we also have a regional office in Mexico for Latin American Caribbean region, and regional office for Asian Pacific in Kuala Lumpur. At the present time, we integrated many global environmental scientific program into something called Future Earth. This is research for global sustainability. And this time, it's not only the International Council of Scientific Union or International Council of Science is pushing for it. International Social Science Council, UNEP, ICFA is a funding agency for this international group of funding agency, UNESCO, United Nations University, and the Belmont Forum. Again, it's a science funding agency for environment, and many developed countries are funding those. US, Great Britain, Germany, Canada, Japan. So we formed the Alliance for Future Earth. And what is Alliance doing? Alliance is trying to answer the big questions. How and why is the global environment changing? What are likely future changes? What are the implications for the well-being of humans and other species? What choices can be made to reduce harm or risk? And the ability to enhance resilience. How can this knowledge support decisions and sustainable development, sustainable transformation? And objective is to provide the knowledge required for society in the world to face risk posed by global environmental change and to see opportunities in the transition to global sustainability. Well, I've been working very hard, but on the other hand, I did feel that we are lagging behind. The pace we are improving, the scientific research and organizing global activities is way behind what's happening at the present time. So I've not been able to sleep very well. Whenever I look at the younger generation, I'm apologetic. When I see my granddaughter, then I really know the word to say to her and what kind of future you will be staying. As I said, this Future Earth initially started by integrating all climate change program diversity tasks in IGBP, global biosphere, and geosphere, and human development project all together and form Earth System Sustainability Research. Then, it was last year, all Belmont Forum and UNU, UNESCO joined together and formed the Future Earth. Future Earth try to engage with the society, engage with the business, engage with the government, and reach the sustainable transformation. We hope that we have some of the research team, so dynamic planet, global development, but the most important thing is the transition toward sustainability. And since last year, we formed the Science Committee is formed, and we have an interim engagement committee in the process of forming governing council. And there is a proposal made by 23 organizations across the world and try to establish the secretariat. So by the summer of next year, that organization will be in full operational and try to move the research and achieve the global sustainability program in 10 years. I said 10 years, we don't have much time. We don't have much time. Unless we turn things around, there will be no future for mankind. So we have to work hard. We really have to work hard. I'm sure every one of you are very dedicated, enlightened scientists. We have to work together and accomplish the sustainability of human society. Otherwise, 50 years from now, I think most of us might not be here. 50 years from now, some of the younger ones will be here. The younger generation certainly will put us on trial. Say, you, how come didn't protect the global environment? It is during our generation the Earth become overloaded and going down. So we all have great responsibility to change things around. Well, hope something will happen miraculously. We'll be able to change what's going on at the present time. I want to thank you very much for your attention. As I said, sun is powerful. We have to go back to the sun, return to the nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lee, about the